Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. From Al-Salata to Jabal Muhsin to Sydney, the light continues. Tonight, at BaytulHuda, the house of guidance, we gather with reverence and gratitude to honor the memory of al-Aḥmad, Shaykh Sulayman al-Ahmad, Qaddasahullah, the scholar, reformer, and guide whose faith and intellect shaped generations and whose light still shines across the Alawi world. For 83 years, believers had gathered in Salata, the place where the Shaykh lived, passed away, and where his noble resting place stands, to commemorate his life and legacy every year on 18th of October. But this year, due to the difficult circumstances in Syria, the commemoration could not be held there. And so, with devotion and unity, our brothers and sisters in Jabal Muhsin, Lebanon, took the honor of reviving this remembrance. In cooperation with the Lebanese Alawite Islamic Council, Noon wal Qalam, Cultural Association, al-Amal Scouts, Tatalla, Nahdat Jabal Association, and BaytulHuda, the House of Guidance Association, Sydney, Australia. Tonight, here in Australia, we join their noble effort, not only to remember, but to reaffirm our unity, our compassion, and our pride in the legacy of our scholars and reformers. We stand together as one Alawi body, spread across Syria, Lebanon, and Australia, yet united in spirit, in knowledge, and in faith. Before we begin the presentation that we have carefully prepared, we will first watch a documentary report that was produced and presented in Lebanon last Monday. Here at BaytulHuda, we have translated it into English so that we may all watch it together and benefit from the valuable insights it contains. May Allah bless the soul of Shaykh Sulaymān al-Ahmad, and may his light continue to guide us on the path of truth and enlightenment. The scholar Shaykh Sulaymān al-Ahmad, a leader of revival and reform in the modern era. May God sanctify his soul.
العلامة الأوحد الشيخ سليمان الأحمد ولد ونشأ في بيت عزيز حفظ فيه القرآن الكريم وسير الأنبياء والقصائد. سريعا برزت المعية هذا الفتى وذاع صيته. زار بيوت الدين والعلم في بلاد العلويين الذين عرفوا قدره فقدروه. تعرف في ترحاله على أخيه الشيخ إبراهيم عبد اللطيف، فتعاهدا على الجهاد في نهضة المجتمع. قاما بزيارة إلى إخوانهم في بلاد الأناضول، ثم قاما برحلة إلى بعلبك وجبل عامل للتباحث مع مراجع إخوانهم الشيعة الذين أدهشهم هذا الحفظ المعتق للدين في صدور العلويين رغم الويلات التي مرت عليهم. وقد عبروا في خطابهم عن تقدير وتعظيم بالغين.
The praise of scholars. The reputation of Shaykh Sulaymān al-Ahmad, Qaddasahullah, reached far beyond his homeland, and the great scholars of his time recognized his brilliance and noble character.
فقد قيل في العلامة الشيخ سليمان الأحمد: أخي ومولاي وخليلي بل صفوة أخلائي، حرس الله سعادتك وأسعد حراستك، أي وسرك المستنير ويم فضلك الغزير وضميرك الطهر ووجدانك الحر وصنائعك الغر. إن الله سبحانه قد أسعدك، فليس بعزيز عليه أن يسعد بك قومك ويعضد بمساعيك أمتك. العلامة محمد حسين الكشف الغطاء. أخي الأعز الأبر العلامة، لا زلت فخرا لكل متوج بعمامة. العلامة المجتهد عبد الحسين شرف الدين الموسوي. لسان الخطابة ويراع الكتابة وساحر البيان وقس الزمان، منهج الصدق والصادع بالحق، العالم الفاضل جناب الأخ الأبر الشيخ سليمان أحمد أفندي. العلامة المجتهد عبد الحسين نور الدين.
The scholar who lit the flame of revival. After years of struggle and loss, Shaykh Sulaymān al-Ahmad rose to lead his people, a scholar who turned solitude into strength and lit the flame of revival through knowledge and faith.
غيب الموت رفيق الدرب، فبقي العلامة وحيدا يحمل اللواء، وتحول بسرعة إلى مرجعية البلاد الدينية. برع في ميدان العلم والبحث، وسمى قدره بين اللغويين والأدباء، فاختاره مجمع اللغة في دمشق بين أعضائه. أشعل العلامة نار النهضة الفكرية والدينية على حد سواء، وأعلن حربا على الجهل والتخلف، متكلا على فطرة سليمة لشعب متعطش ومعتمدا على مدرسة أقامها في بيته من شعبتين. أولها شعبة من المريدين والتلاميذ النجباء من كافة الأطياف، اختار منهم كوكبة نشرت أفكار وتعاليم هذه المدرسة في البلاد. ثانيها شعبة أبنائه وبناته الذين بلغوا حد النبوغ في صنوف العلم والأدب، ومن لا يعرف الشاعر بدوي الجبل والدكتور علي الأحمد والشاعر فتاة غسان. بهاتين الشعبتين وبما كتبه ونشره العلامة الجليل في معظم المجلات التي اشترك بها، كانت هناك عوامل نهضة عم خيرها البلاد والعباد.
Reform on many fronts. Shaykh Sulaymān al-Ahmad's mission of reform reached every corner of thought and faith. He restored the authority of the sacred word, fought superstition and ignorance, and defended belief against the rising tide of atheism, leading a revival that shaped hearts, minds, and generations.
أما الإصلاح فكان على أكثر من صعيد. أولا استعادة القيمة والهيبة للنص الديني على حساب الأعراف والتقاليد. ثانيا محاربة الأباطيل والخرافات وغيرها من الأفكار التي فرضها واقع الخوف والعزلة لقرون عديدة. ثالثا محاربة الهجمة الإلحادية والوجودية التي نشأت مع بداية القرن العشرين. أقيم للعلامة الجليل احتفال وطني كبير في اللاذقية عام 1938، عرف باليوبيل الذهبي، تقديرا لمكانته ودوره الريادي على مستوى الأمة، وقد ألقيت فيه كلمات تشيد بمزاياه. إن هذه الحفلة هي قسط من دين على الأمة العربية، أؤمل أن تستطيع وفاءك إياه إن شاء الله. محافظ اللاذقية إحسان الجابري. نحن يا سيد العلامة كلنا أبناؤك وتلاميذك، فنهضتك الإصلاحية لم تقتصر على هذا الجبل وحده، بل تعدته إلى عموم البلاد العربية، وكان لدمشق النصيب الأوفر منها. الأستاذ رشيد ملوحي باسم شباب دمشق وصحفيها.
The final journey and lasting legacy. In 1942, Shaykh Sulaymān al-Ahmad's Qaddasahullah noble journey came to an end. He departed this world after a lifetime of teaching, reform, and service to faith and nation. Yet his legacy did not fade. It lived on in his students, his writings, and the generations he inspired. A man of light, whose knowledge and sincerity still guide the path of those who seek truth.
استمر العلامة في جهاده الشريف إحياء لدين الله وإصلاحا بين عباده، إلى أن وافته المنية عام 1942، وغاب عن الأمة واحد من أعظم رجالاتها. فجع الدين والعلم والمؤمنون بمثلهم الأعلى، مصيبة خصتني وإن عمت. العلامة المجتهد عبد الحسين شرف الدين الموسوي. أنحني باحترام وإكبار لذكرى فقيد عزيز ووطني كريم، كان منارة وهدى لقومه يأتمون به ويسيرون على نهجه الصالح ومبادئه القويمة فيصيبون سبيل الرشاد. الرئيس السوري هاشم العتاسي. هذا هو العلامة قدس الله روحه الطاهرة ونفسه الزاهرة. لقد كان علما مفردا وعالما جامعا وأمة قانتا لله حنيفا، اجتباه مولاه وهداه إلى صراط مستقيم. لقد كان رحمه الله رحمة من الله.
Imam Sheikh Sulayman al-Ahmad, the scholar and reformer. Prepared by BaytulHuda, the House of Guidance, Sydney, Australia, in collaboration with the organisers of the Lebanese Symposium, 20th of October 2025. Historical context. The world and the Alawite Mountain before the awakening. For centuries, the Alawite Mountain lived in isolation, poverty and hardship. Education was scarce and superstitions replaced true understanding. Faith was preserved only through small circles of dedicated elders. The people relied on local sheikhs for basic religious knowledge. Out of this darkness, reformers like Shaykh Sulayman al-Ahmad were born, men of vision and courage who carried the torch of knowledge. Tonight, we honour the memory of Shaykh Sulayman al-Ahmad, Qaddasahullah, a name that represents knowledge, reform and steadfast faith. He was born into a time when the Alawite community suffered neglect, poverty and intellectual isolation. Faith had become ritual and religion. Once a source of light was shrouded by myths and misguidance. But in this dim age, God sent a soul of light. Shaykh Sulayman rose to remind his people that religion is not fear but understanding, not submission to ignorance but liberation through knowledge. He once wrote, "The mind is God's greatest gift. Whoever neglects it has betrayed the trust of heaven." Tonight, as we recall his world, we must ask ourselves, are we, in our modern world, any less in need of that light today? Early life and education, roots of light and the seed of genius. Born in al-Jubayliya near Jable, Syria in 1856, lived for 86 years and passed away in 1942. Raised in a devout family that valued honesty and humility, displayed an extraordinary love for learning from childhood, memorized the Quran and pursued self-study in Arabic grammar, logic and jurisprudence. His teachers often marveled at his sharp understanding and confident reasoning. The young Sulayman was not merely a student, he was a seeker. He would walk miles to borrow a book, copy its pages by hand at night and return it by dawn. When his teachers misinterpreted a verse of the Quran, he respectfully corrected them, quoting Imam Ali alayhi salam's words to clarify its meaning. At the age of 14. That was not arrogance, it was the awakening of truth within him. His biographers wrote that he learned before he was taught and taught before he was appointed. He believed that real knowledge is not memorized, it is lived. He once said, "Knowledge is not a crown for the head, but a lamp for the path." How do we, as students and teachers today, treat knowledge? Is it a title or is it a light to live by? Intellectual awakening, al-Nahda. The dawn of reform and the voice of revival. The first Alawite scholar to publish in the Lebanese magazine al-Irfan, early 1900s. His writings challenged ignorance and called for education and unity. Urged his people to open their minds to the modern world while preserving the essence of faith. His poetry became a trumpet of awakening, bold, reformative and compassionate. In a time when silence was mistaken for piety, Shaykh Sulayman al-Ahmad spoke. His pen became his sword and his verses a call to awaken a sleeping nation. In one of his most famous poems, he cried out, "O Shia of the guide, awake! The people of the world have risen while you sleep. Do not say fate has bound us. The key to destiny is in your hands." Through such verses, he rekindled self-worth and inspired pride in faith without arrogance. He urged people to see Islam not as a relic of the past, but as a living, thinking, renewing spirit. He reminded them that ignorance is not innocence, it is betrayal. His courage was not in fighting armies, but in fighting the darkness within minds. If he were here among us today, what kind of awakening would he call for in our generation? Relations with scholars, friendship with the great minds of his time. Shaykh Sulayman Qaddasahullah maintained a wide correspondence with leading scholars across Arab and the Muslim world. Among his closest friends were Sayyid Abd al-Hussein Sharaf al-Din, Sayyid Muhsin al-Amin, Sayyid Muhammad al-Hussein Kashif al-Ghita, Sheikh Muhammad Rida al-Shabibi, Iraqi Minister of Education. He was respected by scholars from Najaf, Karbala, Ash-Sham and Jabal al-Amal. He was often described as the eloquent tongue of Islam. True scholars recognize one another by the fragrance of sincerity. Though Shaykh Sulayman lived far from the great cities of learning, his words travelled where his body could not. His letters to and from Najaf, Iraq and Jabal al-Amal, Lebanon reveal mutual respect. Great scholars called him the eloquent tongue of Islam. In his letter to Sharaf ad-Din and Kashif al-Ghita, he discussed language, theology and the moral duties of scholars towards society. They called him a light from the Alawite Mountain that guides and does not fade. Despite his fame, he remained humble, signing his letters simply as Sulayman, the servant of truth. He linked the Alawite Mountain with the centers of Shi'i learning in Najaf, Karbala and Lebanon. He believed that scholars must be bridges, not barriers, voices of unity, not division. He would say, the ink of the scholar must flow where the blood of the martyr once did. Both defend the same truth. What does true scholarship mean to us today? Prestige or service? Isn't it a contradiction that we revere Shaykh Sulayman al-Ahmad Qaddasahullah, display his portrait with pride, yet isolate ourselves from others and even accuse those who follow his inclusive example of being too close to the Shia? How can we claim to follow his teachings while rejecting the very openness he lived by? Thought and religious reform. Faith through knowledge, not fear, not superstition. Shaykh Sulaymān rejected superstition and the exploitation of religion. He condemned fortune telling, astrology, charms and manipulation of the gullible. He called upon people to use their intellect, the divine trust within every human. He emphasized that religion is reason illuminated by faith, defined ignorance as the true enemy of faith. Shaykh Sulaymān was not content to preach what everyone already believed. He challenged false comfort. He saw how fear and superstition had replaced understanding, and he declared war upon them, not with anger but with wisdom. He bravely challenged popular superstitions. He declared that ignorance, not spirits, is what truly enslaves the human mind. He once wrote in a letter, "The greatest sin is not disbelief in God, but disbelief in the mind He gave you." He reminded people that the true Tawheed, monotheism, means seeing God in knowledge, justice and compassion, not in charms or rituals devoid of meaning. He believed that reason and faith are two wings of the same bird. He would often tell his students, when reason and faith walk together, they reach the truth. When they part, both fall. What superstitions enslave the modern mind today, and how can we free ourselves through knowledge? Ethical and spiritual principles, the inner code of a believer. He taught that every religion is not a ceremony but a way of life. Every sincere act, teaching, serving, helping is an act of worship. He embodied humility, patience and truthfulness in every aspect of his life. His words were firm, yet his heart was tender. Shaykh Sulaymān Qaddasahullah lived by a simple rule: to please God, not the people. He would say, seek no applause for doing right. Virtue needs no audience. He believed that faith manifests in daily responsibility. For him, the teacher, the farmer and the ruler all worship God through honest work. He saw hypocrisy as the greatest disease of the soul. He warned scholars and leaders alike that piety without sincerity is like a lamp without oil. In his poetry, he reflected this truth beautifully. The worshipper bowed 1,000 times, yet pride did not bow within him. How can the earth kiss the ground while the heart stands tall? His humility was legendary. He lived simply, gave generously, and never spoke of his good deeds. He believed that true faith is not in words, but in how one treats others. What does sincerity look like in our time? If the Shaykh taught that humility is the crown of knowledge, why do so many of today's leaders wear arrogance like a turban? He warned that piety without sincerity is like a lamp without oil. So why are our pulpits today filled with smoke instead of light? He lived to please God, not the people. But how many of our preachers today worship applause instead of God? He said, virtue needs no audience. But tell me, how many of our scholars today could live without one?
يا شيخ سليمان أحمد داخلك كنت العلامة وقدوي بيجيلك أو حال الباري حتى غني لك وعالي كان يركب فوق الميمونة موجود علامي نورا بلالي مدى الأيام ظهر السلاطة موجود علامي نورا بلالي مدى الأيام سليمان الأحمد نعم العلامي شيخ المعاجم بالدين يكونا.
National and social stance, a voice for unity and honor. Shaykh Sulaymān stood firmly against the French colonial plan to divide Syria into sectarian states. He resigned from his position as chief judge rather than legitimize injustice. He issued a fatwa forbidding theft, revenge raids, and sectarian killings. He declared that those who violate justice shall not be prayed over. In times of foreign occupation and social unrest, Shaykh Sulaymān al-Ahmad Qaddasahullah did not remain silent. He refused to legitimize the colonial division of Syria, standing firmly for national and religious unity, even at the cost of his position and comfort. When the French authorities tried to create a separate Alawite state, he rejected their offer of position and power. He said, "A faith that divides its homeland has betrayed its prophet." This act of defiance was not merely political, it was spiritual. He saw unity as a form of worship and division as a sin. He taught that loving one's country is not nationalism, but gratitude to the land that nurtures life and dignity. He became a moral compass during an age of confusion. He would tell his followers, "Do not curse the darkness of occupation if you have not lit a candle of reform." If faced with injustice today, do we have the courage to defend unity and truth as he did, even at personal cost? Literary and linguistic legacy. The Living Dictionary of al-Sham. Appointed member of the Arabic Language Academy of Damascus in 1922. Respected by leading philologists of his time. Renowned as the living dictionary for his unmatched mystery of Arabic. Corrected hundreds of errors in classical Arabic texts such as Abu Tammam's works. Wrote poetry blending faith, philosophy and linguistic elegance. Language for Shaykh Sulaymān Qaddasahullah was not just communication, it was a form of worship. He believed that Arabic, the language of revelation, carries a sacred rhythm that refines the soul. He once said, "Every word has a spirit. Misuse it and you wounded soul." His peers in al-Sham marveled at his knowledge. His linguistic precision astonished Arabic scholars. He corrected errors in classical works with humility, never seeking credit, and was known for his encyclopedic knowledge of the Arabic tongue. He saw words as living things, vessels that carry the fragrance of meaning. In one poem he wrote, "I weave my words as a tailor weaves light, not for fame, but to clothe truth with beauty." He was admired by scholars across the Arab world as both alim and adib, a man who joined precision of intellect with the grace of poetry. How can we, in an age of careless words, restore the sanctity and beauty of language? The champion of women's education, Shaykh Sulayman al-Ahmad Qaddasahullah, also known as the liberator of women. He raised his daughters to seek knowledge. Among them was Fatima Fattat Ghassan, regarded as one of the first Alawite female writers. He encouraged women's education and their participation in intellectual and cultural life. His home became a model of enlightenment, where both men and women studied under one roof of light and learning. In an age when girls were deprived of the right to learn, Shaykh Sulaymān al-Ahmad broke that barrier and opened for his daughters the doors of study and writing. He believed that educating women was not a luxury, but a duty of civilization, that the mind knows no difference between male and female. His daughter, Fatima Fattat Ghassan, was among the first Alawite women to carry the ideas of reform and renewal into her society, becoming a symbol of progress, awareness, and an active continuation of her father's mission. Ignorance is a disgrace to those who accept it, while knowledge is the adornment of those who seek it. Do we value the place of women today as Shaykh Sulaymān intended? And do we give them the space to share in knowledge and reform as his daughter Fatima once did? He broke the walls of ignorance for his daughters, so why do some still build them higher for theirs? He educated his daughters when others forbade it, so what would he say today, seeing those who quote him while silencing their own daughters? He taught that ignorance is a disgrace, so why do some still treat women's minds as something to be hidden rather than be honoured? He broke the walls of ignorance for his daughters, so why do some still build them higher for theirs? Impact on Alawite thought, from hidden tradition to enlightened identity. Shaykh Sulaymān transformed the intellectual face of the Alawite community. He encouraged systematic education and open dialogue. He restored pride in religious and cultural heritage without arrogance. His ideas became the foundation for modern Alawite scholarship and self-understanding. Before his time, Alawite thought was often confined to small circles of secrecy and tradition. He opened the doors, not to dilute the faith, but to purify and clarify it. He taught that secrecy without reason becomes isolation, and knowledge without sharing becomes decay. He would often repeat, "Truth fears no sunlight." His teachings gave the Alawite community a sense of dignity and belonging within the broader Muslim world. He reconnected them with the Quran, the Imams, and the moral core of Islam, away from superstition or defensiveness. Through him, Alawite scholarship became a path of renewal and confidence. He gave his people a mirror in which they could see both their heritage and their potential. What does it mean today to be an Alawite who is both faithful and enlightened? How can we continue his legacy in our communities? He opened the doors of knowledge and dialogue, so why are some still guarding them as if ignorance were a sacred relic? He said, "Truth fears no sunlight." Then why do some still draw the curtains when it rises? Legacy of knowledge and integrity. Lessons for our generation. Shaykh Sulaymān Qaddasahullah life is not just history, it is a mirror. His courage, wisdom, humility, devotion, and sincerity offer timeless guidance. Dedicated more than 70 years to education, reform, and authorship. Taught generations of students, including his son, Badawi al-Jabal, a celebrated poet. Each era must rediscover his message of enlightenment through faith. The questions he raised still echo into our hearts today. When we look at Shaykh Sulayman al-Ahmad Qaddasahullah, we do not see a distant figure. We see a living principle, the union of reason and reverence. He lived and died in simplicity, seeking only to serve truth and knowledge. His influence endures in every Alawite scholar who follows his path. He reminds us that faith without knowledge becomes blind obedience, and knowledge without faith becomes arrogance. He once wrote, "If learning does not humble you, you have learned nothing." Let us use his example to awaken ourselves. He wanted every believer to become a builder of hearts and minds, not merely a follower of customs. How can we turn his teachings into living practice in our families, schools, and communities? What does it mean to inherit his legacy in a world of distraction and doubt? He said, "If learning does not humble you, you have learned nothing. So why does arrogance seem to graduate faster than knowledge?" He taught that knowledge should serve truth, not pride. Yet how many of us study to be seen, not to understand? He built minds, not monuments. So why do we measure success by fame, not by integrity? Continuing the path of light, from the scholar of his generation to the guides of ours. Every generation is given its own carriers of light. In our age, one such figure is Sheikh al-Ahmad, Hafidhahullah, a scholar who embodies wisdom, humility, and steadfast service. Through BaytulHuda, the house of guidance, and Huda Nur, guidance of the light, he supports us to continue the same mission of enlightenment that Shaykh Sulaymān began. It is our duty to support, learn from, and walk beside such living guides. The story of Imam Sheikh Sulayman al-Ahmad, Qaddasahullah, does not end with his passing. His light continues through those who follow his path. In Shaykh Tamam Ahmad, we see the same blend of intellect, gentleness, and courage, the same refusal to trade truth for comfort. He stands among us not as a man seeking followers, but as a teacher calling hearts back to their Creator. He reminds us that every lesson, every gathering, every act of sincere service is part of the same river of guidance that flowed through al-Ahmad al-Jil. Shaykh Sulaymān once wrote, "The lamp of the spirit must be kept burning in every age, otherwise the night will think it has won." Do we recognize and honor the living guides among us before it is too late? We claim to love our scholars, yet how often do we support them only after they're gone? If the light still shines among us, why do so many walk as though the night has already begun? We say we follow the path of light, but do we walk beside its living bearers? Will we be among those who keep the flame alive, so that BaytulHuda and Huda Nur may guide generations yet to come? Their light still shines, but it is our duty to make it reach further.
وقفت بباب عفوك مستغيثا مؤود الظهر بالوزر الثقيل أقلني ما جنته يدي اجتراما وما أسلفت من قال وقيل وهبني للولاء لآل طه وظلك سيدي فاجعل مقيلي أنا العبد الذليل وضعت رحلي بباب السيد الملك الجليل لجأت به إلى حرز حريز ومنه أويت في ظل ظليل وما أنا للكثير بمستحق ولا مولاي يرضى بالقليل وما أنا للكثير بمستحق ولا مولاي يرضى بالقليل.
These are the references of everything we talked about. Just a closing reflection. May Allah bless the soul of al-ʿallāmah Shaykh Sulayman al-Ahmad, Qaddasahullah, the scholar and reformer who awakened hearts through faith and intellect. May his light continue to guide us, to seek knowledge with humility, to serve with sincerity, and to live with courage and compassion. His life reminds us that the truth never dies, and that every generation is called to keep the lamp of guidance burning. May knowledge remain our path and faith our everlasting light. Allahumma salli ala Muhammadin wa ali Muhammad. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.